everyone. This is Kathy Mason from MasonWorks Marketing here on Conscious Business Zone with my new friend, Isabel Hundt. And Isabel, I am so excited to introduce you to this audience because your message is so timely for us to create this new world that we're dreaming into. We're bringing in the physical from our consciousness. And as Isabel is from East Germany originally, and she came to the U.S. and then she's taken course. Well, you've got a sociology degree, and I'm going to mess this up, so I'm going to go fast. But she created this unbelievable film called The Power of Connection that I got to see as part of Co-Creators Convergence contribution to World Unity Week. And that's when we met each other. It's like, sister from another mother. Right. So first of all, I want everyone to know about this movie. It's won 15 awards, I think, or more.
16. Mm-hmm.
16 now. Okay, so you have to understand that this movie was done during COVID. It's magical how she did it. So why don't you talk about how you created this movie from the beginning? Because that's the whole thing is a magical thing.
Yes, I don't know if you can hear some of this humming noise. For whatever reason, there are helicopters out there, and I don't know what's going on. They're watching. They get one finger from me if that's what they do. I would not think that I'm that important to them, but who knows? You never know, right?
How boring those tapes must be to watch your every move.
Oh my God, yeah. She's just sitting there on her computer in trance. I don't know what she's doing. But yes, back to the film. Yeah, for one, it's really great to be on your show. I just love you. I love our conversations. It's just always really beautiful and really conversations that enlighten, that move us forward. In terms of the film, in 2019, I got really frustrated. I almost hit like a all-time low when it comes to my business, that I just didn't want to do anything anymore. Not that I wasn't, successful with it. It just didn't resonate. Something just inside of me, it was like, it doesn't feel right. I need a break. I didn't want to coach anymore. I didn't want to speak anymore. I didn't want to do any of that anymore. And so my husband was like, well, then just stop for a while and not do anything. Like, it's fine. You're allowed to do that. We're going to be fine. I love my husband for that, by the way. And so one night I was like, I feel like I need to do something more with the stuff that I have, with the content that I have. There's just so many stories that I have put into small speeches that I feel like I need to do something with it. He's like, well, why don't you create a film? Yeah, right. Like, because I have no background in filmmaking and I wouldn't be able to pay people. It costs a lot of money to create a film. And I wouldn't have had that budget, especially since I just decided that I didn't want to coach for a while. And he's like, well, think about it. I'm like, okay. So I went to bed. Next morning, I meditated. And suddenly I had this entire, I had this entire script come to me. Like, literally, I was 15 or 20 minutes in, and I just could see how I wanted it to move from the beginning to the end. And once I finished, I just wrote it all down. And I think the next day I just posted it on Facebook. Like, I have this really cool idea and this is the script. And I don't know, like, I just really want to get this out, but I don't have any budget for creating a film, but I really think it would be a cool idea. So suddenly I had people reach out that I didn't know. I'm like, hey, I have this friend, and they have a friend of a friend who is a videographer, and people who edit. Like, people suddenly came together within 2 weeks. I had an entire team of people who volunteered their time to work on this passion project. And the reason why they volunteered was because they said they wanted to do something that has passion, something that really mattered to them and not just was work.
Right.
And it was just incredible, from the videographer to the editors, how they came together. We had a few shifts and switches there, which was also very divinely guided in the end. And the script writer, people who, my friend Kat, who is in media, and so she looked over that, and I'm making sure that I'm not going to say anything that I shouldn't say at all. It was just beautiful how it all came together. And then we were always like to the point where we wanted to finish filming and then shut down. And so we couldn't quite finish everything that we wanted to in the way we wanted to. So we had to shift a couple of things and move things around. But we were still able to work on the editing, of course, throughout 2020. Made a couple different changes, like we're able to film where no people are in the picture or something. Did a lot of interviews. Yeah, and it just by December 31st, my editor says it is finished. Here you go. And she was incredible.
And so were you dreamed this into being? I mean, your husband mentions to you, oh, well, why don't you just take some time off? Oh, and by the way, why don't you make a film?
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of, for him to have said that, that's divinely inspired. And then for your download to have happened, I just wonder how many people have downloads like this that don't take action. I mean, you took
probably a lot of people, because always people ask how and what will people say about that. I mean, I'm sure there were a lot of people who doubted this whole thing. I'm like, oh, now she's going to film producer like everyone else. No, I could hear this. I could hear the judgment. I mean, there were a lot of people who were just waiting for this to fail. And then when one award after another came in, suddenly I'm like, oh, maybe we should take that seriously, or maybe it's actually a good film to watch. Obviously, we could have done a lot of things better. And if we had $1 million, we probably could have shifted and changed a couple of things, but it is about the message, and that's what it always has been. And the simplicity. So I didn't even want to make it too difficult, because I wanted it to be simple to understand. And with the simplicity of the understanding of the message, it would have distracted if we would have done anything crazy, fancy schmancy in the background. That just wouldn't align with the simplicity of it. But I think it turned out still very beautiful.
Yeah, it doesn't need the special effects and the abstract side.
We got a few in. We have an incredible illustrator from Taiwan.
But do you know what I'm saying? Is that a lot of times that you'll see these movies where they, and I think this is common in film and communications right now, where it's like quick, where the pace has to shift to try to keep attention. And what you do is you go deep. Instead of distract, entertain, you're going in. So let's talk about the message. Let's talk, because I believe as evolutionary input, the evolutionary impetus right now for humanity is to go to a different type of programming where we can use telepathy. I think the internet is like training wheels, but we have unkind thoughts. We have judgments. We are so far away from being able to be telepathic with each other. And I think what your subject is, the power of connection, the whole theme of it is about how do you get rid of the programming that's separating us.
Yes.
So, take it away.
Take it away. You know what? I just realized. I don't know if you. This way. I don't know if you can read that. It's far away. It's hard to read. It says, "Awake my soul." It's kind of perfect, right, for this conversation.
Right.
Yes, I just really wanted people to understand that there is more than what we're fighting for. Like every fight, no matter if we think it is good or bad, we are resisting something. That lies within ourselves, and that creates disconnection, because it's always still me against them. We're always fighting. Even if we think we're fighting for the good, we stand up for the good, we're still fighting. We're in this mentality of fight. And that is not bringing community. That is not bringing unity. And that doesn't help us to understand that we are all one within the understanding of all there is. And in the film, we're really portraying how, based on a true story that I have experienced coming to the US, how easy it is to meet someone or to connect with a group of people, and you have all those programming running down in your mind from everything you have been taught at school, from everything that you have been taught and lived by with your parents. I mean, they have been that role model in general, from celebrities, social media programming, TV program. That's why it is called television programming. We need to understand that because people are not getting that.
Yeah.
No, I can keep my distance from this. I can just watch and nah. Not really. Eventually, if you repeat it often enough, just like the commercials, you just suddenly like, oh, this hurts. I think I have cancer. Right?
Well,
and then you talk yourself into it.
It's like hypnotherapy. You don't even know that you're being, well, when we were little, I'm older than you, but when we were little, there were commercials and you would like, there were jingles with it. And I'm, 40 years later, I can still sing every one of those jingles. And I've never bought the products, but I was programmed.
You still sing it, yeah? Right? Yeah. Yeah.
You don't want me to.
No, you don't have to. I'll let you go on this one. But but yeah, and one of the big topics was the religious programming, where religion in the very early days has been used, like even now, to manipulate people. The psychological manipulation, using emotions, using our individual reactions and responses to situations have been used against us. And something that I want people to understand through this film in particular as well, that only because of those programmings, only because of the trauma that we have taken on and passed down generations to generations, lifetimes through lifetimes, only because we're not focusing on actually releasing those and healing those and reprogramming our DNA, this is why we're getting triggered. This is why we are responding to any political situation, to any social pointers that in the end divide us. They are using historical and ancestral trauma when it comes to Black Lives Matter movements. They are using sexual and physical abuse trauma when it comes to, separating, fighting for certain rights, even within the LGBTQ communities. Like, all of those things are not created to create unity, even though, and I'm a sociologist, we understand empirical studies and statistics, right? Even though we're making it sound like it's for the benefit of the greater good, it is not. I'm telling you, I studied it. And at some point I was so upset about it because I'm like, I think we're missing something here in this entire thing. We think we're doing good things by separating and helping people to understand why this group of people acts like this and this group of people acts like that, when we're taking a bigger look at the energetic field of things, which is creating separations. And when we separate like that, we're controllable because we're continuously being triggered within that group already, as an individual, as a community, and then of course as a collective. We're always being triggered. And that is what I want people to help to understand, that if you are responding even to the current situation in one way or another that upsets you, that makes you angry, you're being triggered. You're being triggered. Even if from a logical perspective, you might be right or maybe not, but who knows who is right or wrong? That's again why we have personal freedom, personal choice, because everyone is on their own journey. Everyone is on a different level of awareness. That level sounds weird because we're not really on a level, but on a different evolutional point. I don't know how to mention or how to even say that, of understanding.
I call it a hologram. I think that we're each in our own little hologram, and sometimes they intersect like a Vesica Pisces, and then we agree upon a unified hologram. And
Yeah.
that's almost like global consciousness. But right now, what we're doing is we're finding this lockdown period has allowed us, a bunch of us, to find each other that have different perspectives of reality and see what we can dream up out of the non-physical into physical in a very unique way.
Mhm.
So your sociology degree, did that help you understand how the history of how we got here, and then what the evolutionary step can be, or did it just label everything?
I think to degree both, mostly just label, because sociologists love to label things to perceive as more simple or more understandable. That's how we all come together, when we understand each other through labels. Not true. I think how we have gotten there is from one truth, and that's where the biblical stories come in. You start with a lie, and you continue to create one lie on top of the other. Eventually, the Tower of Babel would just fall. Those kind of things. I mean,
Yeah,
that was a weird example
that
now,
is
but at some point it will all just crash, the entire system. At one point, we have discovered that ego is bringing us a sense of power, and the understanding of separation from a divine source is where it's at, and we continue that story and enabled that story over so many thousands and thousands and thousands of years, to where we're at now, where people start to remember, and awake, hear the side, awake their soul, to the point of understanding, like, there's something inside of me that wants to break out, and I don't know what it is. But we have gotten to this point where it has to break down, just like we're talking in the film about. It takes bravery to crash that internal house, its internal palace that you have created of programming and teachings and belief system, and smash it and create something new by rediscovering your soul, by rediscovering the oneness with all there is, right? And that's where we're at. I think that's, after all those many years, we're finally at this point where more and more people are ready, and it takes only 51% of the collective to shift the entire vibration and frequency of the collective.
So I don't know if you know, the reason I haven't gotten back to you right away is I've been very involved with the IONS group, which is the International Association for Near-Death Studies, and all of the most of the membership, which is an international group, has had these incredible experiences, but they mangled their bodies to get there. But they where you were able to look at it and go, no, this doesn't make sense, and then do theta healing and do meditation to get to that other state. I also did that. I had a spiritually transformative experience by purposely taking courses to get me to a clearer place. So I wasn't relying on the foundation of my core training, my
Mm.
programming. I was trying to erase it. Um, but when what they're saying is, as far as us expanding, is that 10% of the population has been resuscitated because the standard practice at a hospital is, when somebody comes in, they save their lives. So one of my people that I just love, his name's Peter Panagore. He said, and this like excited me like incredibly, that those people are going to be activated to remember their mystical experience. Right now, they
Mm.
may have thought it was a drug, or the brain didn't function right. It was kind of like a dream that they stuffed because it didn't fit their paradigm. He said that's part of what's going to activate the whole of humanity, because we're to get us to a tipping point. I don't even know if you need 51%. I think,
Maybe not. Maybe
well,
not.
well,
Yeah.
10% more. I mean, you've had all these sages come in throughout the history of mankind, that they made religions out of
Yeah.
that said, hey, you can do what I do, but you got to put a little effort into it. Um,
Yeah, that's right.
but what he's saying is that because of I mean, it's almost this divine plan that these people, if they're sparked into remembering their mystical connection and they don't have to go through the programmed path to find out who they really are and to reconnect to their soul. Wow, cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just
We all have that ability. I mean, I can't remember that I ever had a near-death experience. My only experience was when I was a child. I think I was about 7. It feels like 7. I don't even know if it's quite accurate. Maybe I should look that up. But it feels like 7 or 8. I was 7 or 8, and we had those huge bunk beds that my dad made himself. I have 4 younger siblings, so we all had to fit in, a room, and it was in the 80s. So I remember I was watching that night. We just had gotten TV, and it was just still starting to be that little color, It was just fascinating with those huge boxes. Remember, they were heavy like hell. Those huge boxes, and I just was watching the news, and I saw some kind of news story about war, and I just saw the night light vision, that green light and the bombs and the sirens. And every time we had sirens going up in our little town, which was very close, we lived close to the school, I started to have like a trigger. And one night, I remember I was in my bed, and it was like right after midnight. I was sitting up in my bed. I started to scream. I fell back in my pillow, and I said, I can't move, I can't move, I can't move. And I couldn't move. My parents came running, tried to get me off the bed. They couldn't, because I was already heavier and I couldn't move. Like with every time they touched me, I screamed, and I didn't know what was going on. And then they called the doctor, and he put a neck brace on my neck, and then they tried to get me down. But when that happened, I don't know if the pain was just simply too hard or too much for me. I had an out-of-body experience. Like I remember now looking back that I was standing already down on the floor. I was watching my sister. She had to move out of her bed so that and I saw all 3 of them trying to get me off that bed. And I watched them until I was laying on the couch, and they were, he was trying to get me stable and figure out what it was. He then just diagnosed me with, it looks like head trauma. Did she hurt herself? Never did. My pillow must have been a rock, I guess. Never gotten, and in a time frame of 2 weeks, I got worse. To the point that I started to puke, and I couldn't move, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't do anything. And until a family friend said, I think she needs to go to the hospital. So my parents took me to the hospital. My head was always like this. I couldn't move. And they said she had a severe head trauma. And we never knew why or how I had to stay in the hospital for 2 weeks. And I gotten better. Over the years, I learned that, because still after that happened, I was diagnosed that my C4 through C6 was damaged, that it moved so that it pushed on the nerve, on the spinal cord, and that created a feeling of paralyzation, like I couldn't move. It just was kind of like this whole pain from here all the way up and down. And what the C4 through C6 are responsible for is they're related to emotional reactions, responses. So since I am very highly sensitive, and I always have, it seems to me that all of what I had watched on TV, because that was all new stuff for me, because TV had just come out, created that emotional pressure. I took that pain on from the war scenes, because that was all I remembered. And then when the sirens went off, I got, every time I had another trigger, another reminder of that night vision with the bombs dropping, people screaming. And that eventually just got too much, and my neck just gave out and created a trauma response. So I not just an emotional trauma, but a physical trauma response. And that has actually impacted me for my entire life now, until just a couple of years ago, when I discovered healing modalities and was able to release that pressure from my neck. Every now and then it still comes when I don't ground enough, or when I watch too much online or just, scroll through Facebook too much and see everyone posting and getting upset, then I can feel my neck again and getting out. But that is truly how, not just on a physical basis, but on an energetic basis, trauma triggers us every single day that we react to, instead of healing that and then creating a response in on a platform of love, compassion, and unity.
Well, I think that what we're going to see is that your sensitivity, I mean, we'll talk about your able to see colors and everything too, but did that happen from this?
I don't know. I always felt like I was able to do that. I remember telling my mom a couple times that I feel like the world is in a snow globe and I can shake it and move it. And I'm able to observe and watch people, and I know things that I shouldn't know. I took on a lot from when I was little most of my life. And I never really thought about that I saw everything in color, not physically. Like, I'm not sitting here and seeing my blinds in a different color. It's like in my inner eye where I just like, oh, if I think about the city, this color comes up as dominant. What does that mean? If I look at this person or just ask creator to focus and show me what is that dominant color, I can see that really quickly. Yeah. And I have noticed even over the last year, because I've taken so much time to meditate, because of the lockdown, there wasn't, anywhere for me really to go. And I honestly enjoyed that. Because I was able to really take that time to sit for 3-4 hours and just meditate. That has skyrocketed my level of intuition. Sometimes I just, see pictures and I can't even explain how much it's like the whole world is just mine, and I just can program it and I can see it. And I'm like, oh, you experienced that? And they're like, I never told you. I'm like, oh, I thought you did. Sorry. It seems so obvious, but at the same time, for me, there is a learning curve of not judging it and just seeing it for what it is and just feeling the compassion for it. And that has really helped me in my healing business as well.
I would say I do something similar where I use my third eye, and a lot of times I can tell if somebody's sick. I can see a color around them or grayness around them, or I can sometimes see that, but it's definitely not, well, it'd be rare to see it with these eyes. It's almost always here.
Yeah.
But let's go back to that idea of dreaming the dream in, because you certainly did that with this film. You had this concept that maybe was downloaded or received by others, but people didn't act on it. And you had a message that is so timely and so important for our evolution as a species.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about how so this is kind of law of attraction meets reality show. because that's what, I mean, you drummed it in, and then you held the space knowing it would work out perfectly. I mean, did you have any fear? Did you have any trepidation? Did you just, I mean, in 18 months, you created a film that's an award-winning film.
Who knew? I always thought if I could just get one that would help with marketing it. That's all I thought. That's all I was really focusing on. If I just get one, maybe it helps with marketing and giving it credibility.
But see, what the thing was is you planted the seed and watered it. So that's what the question is how can other people, well, first of all, there's many questions, but one of the questions is how can other people do something like this with their dreams, with their soul mission, with their gift?
Oh, well, that's honestly rather difficult to answer because it depends on everyone's journey and where they're at. I just, for me personally, and from knowing what my clients have experienced over the last 10 years that I've done this work, it always has been a way to oneself, back to oneself, trusting your intuition, trusting what comes up, paying attention to the stories that are happening around you, to what you see, if it's, certain animals, or if it's a repetitive number, or if it's I don't know, certain people showing up or people asking you a specific question that seem to be coming up over and over and over, or just stories that go through your head. That's why journaling is so powerful. You really get to know yourself. You really get to connect with yourself. And the more you do that, the more you are able to sit with yourself, to sit in silence, the more you feel guided. Just like I was finished with the film. I hadn't done any coaching work in about a year and a half. And I finished the film, and here I was, and I was sitting, I'm like, okay, God, what is next for me? Like, what am I supposed to focus on in the here and now? And I meditated, and I suddenly heard this voice. I'm like, you know exactly what you're here for here and right now. You have an incredible gift of healing, or witnessing the healing in other people. Focus on trauma healing again. Go back to it, because this is what is needed right now, and will probably for the next couple years, because the more people awaken, the more painful memories will come up. And, the more they may realize that they are responding from a place of trauma. And I just sat there for maybe a week until it became very clear to me that this is just where I have to be right now. I don't have to be on the stage necessarily if I get to great, especially with the film, but it does tie all in with the film. The film is the overall message of my entire business. I don't even call it really business anymore. It's just my mission. And from there, I get to pick certain, things that I want to implement on an individual level. And it's been great. People have come to me, referrals. It's been just magical, literally working with my clients again. I'm really enjoying it. Like, I'm not even dragging it. And when you do that, when you really listen and you follow that, you get excited.
Right.
You love it again. You don't get tired. Obviously, you should honor your boundaries, and do it for the right reason. But when you do, it just becomes effortlessly.
Right. Well, the thing is that I can imagine working with you would be amazing, because your energy is so high that anyone who gets to work with you would get like tuning forks, to share that space and then try it out to see if they can they do it for themselves. It's all about empowerment. Actually, everything you do, the film, I want to go back to the film, because a lot of the viewers, and I want to say hi to a few of them in a second, but a lot of the people that are listening to this right now, or will listen to the replay, are small business owners. And the film could be a huge benefit to you, to show to your employees, maybe to show it and gift it as a way to work with your clients also, where you could have very deep change happen, very deep transformation happen. And did you see that? How did you see this film? You expressed it, but how was your dream for this film to be used?
That's a good question. Well, that was not clear. I was not told that part. And so I'm like, now what? What am I supposed to do with it? But it kind of seems to be taking on its own little course. Having different conversations, different feedback from people who have watched. I'm like, hey, I would love to see that. I think my heart has always been with young adults. So let's say between 16 and 25, 30-ish. Who just really seem to be right now in this extreme shift. And I think that's why we see an increase in suicide, because they're just like in this in-between state. I'm like, I feel this, but I need to follow this, and nothing feels right. What am I even supposed to do here? And I'd rather just leave this plane than continue struggling with what I feel internally. And it has become really passionate. I have become really passionate of working with those young adults, because they are also very open to it. I mean, they are just so much aware when it comes to ancestral trauma. They understand how their own community is often driving them into division, is often driving them into poverty when they have an opportunity arise that doesn't may fit the narrative of the particular community that they're part of. And the conversations have been just incredible. So I think we're working on getting it licensed right now. I'm still working on the budget a little bit, but I think I'm almost there. And we want to license it and potentially create a workbook with it. I know you and we have been talking about that. And I got sick in August, so I didn't do much in August with that. But it definitely is still on my list to create a workbook for, for young adults, in particular, high school and college students, to just reflect on that, to start conversations themselves, because that's really all it is. They don't need to be told what they should do, because that's just another programming. Right. I want people to think for themselves, just like I teach my son. Right. Question things. What is your opinion about this? What do you think about it? Are you open to receiving feedback from me? My son is 7, and I'm telling you, we do that. And that just shows how he's interacting with people around him at this very young age. And I love seeing it, really. Right. So the film is really created to start conversations, to start the deeper conversation, not just creating new policies and creating this and doing this, instead of let's have the conversations about ourselves. How about that?
Right. Well, and the thing is, everything that is in your external environment is from your internal state of being. Yeah. And so if you're not feeling like you're connecting, you have to start to look at what is it that's keeping me from connecting, or what am I afraid of? Because so much of this whole churn this past 2 years has just been fear after, and you get to
on all sides.
That's right. And then shame. It's the whole. It's like, once you realize that we're all the same, which we are, and they're all divine, then how does all of this fit, right? And then how do we get to process that? When you just said that you asked your son if he was open to have a discussion about it, that's huge, because a lot of the people in my life don't always ask, but they're very happy to tell me what I do wrong.
What you should be doing and how you're supposed to live your life.
Rebel.
Yeah. Well, especially right now, there's just so many opinions, very strong opinions. People start cherry picking in where their own messaging from their own business fits into the narrative, and where it doesn't, and still continue to spread the message that they thought they have for their business. So it's very interesting to see this unravel, and also for me to observe where people, or where we all as a society, as a world society, have still so much work to do in becoming aware and being honest. Radical honesty is lacking. And I'm not talking about pushing your honesty into someone else's face, but being radically honest with yourself when, someone says, hey, I'm noticing this discrepancy between what you say here and what you say you're standing for. What do you think about that? Doesn't make sense. Instead of trying to defend yourself, you're like, hey, you know what? I wasn't aware of that. Thank you for pointing that out. I'll take a deeper look.
Right. Well,
at least that's how I usually respond. But
I think also that this is what I'm sensing, that people. I've always been sensitive, and so have you. Yeah. So we actually have had this experience of knowing, is it me or is it them, and then taking the responsibility of what is ours. Yep. To work with, because otherwise it's miserable. Yeah. But I think everyone's going to start becoming more sensitive. I think that's part of our evolution of our species. And if that's the case, there's going to be a whole bunch of people that weren't even aware of others, because they're so in their lane. Yeah. And feel like they're on the success path. That's why you see a lot of people that got the degrees, got married, got the perfect kids, did everything that society says is what they're supposed to do, and they're not happy and they're not fulfilled.
Yeah.
And they're waking up going, oh, what did I do wrong? I'm a good girl, or I'm a good boy. And this was what I was supposed to do. And there's no joy in it.
I think most people don't even know what joy means. I
Oh,
see that so many times with my clients when we download Creators Knowing Understanding of what joy truly feels in your body, they start crying. They just they start brawling like, oh my gosh, I finally I can feel like but I can't grasp even the concept of what we just downloaded. Most people think like if I dance a little and be joyful, that is joy. True joy goes so much deeper. It comes with a sense of peace and freedom. And that's why when people's like, aren't you like worried about what's to come and what is happening right now? My husband might, who knows what with his job is gonna go, but we're not worried at all. I'm like, no, I'm actually excited about what's happening because I have the vision of what is possible, and we need more visionaries who can communicate what is possible on the other side of this timeline so that we can actually create it. And like we were talking about business and communities, here's my vision, and I'll share it. Here's my vision, what I think is possible. And maybe some people are like, that's utopia, it's never going to happen. But I think it's already starting, so I'm not even worried. Where little compounds are being created, very going back to the basics of indigenous people who had their tribe, who had compounds where, a couple families lived together on land, supporting each other with farming your own land with what you need, and supporting each other and raising your children. And then you will have within those smaller compounds, you will have bigger communities where you can find people who are trained in being doctors, in being teachers. Like you will see this is what we're seeing already now, where teachers leaving their jobs because it's getting too crazy, and
right.
they go to one family's home and teach 4, 5, 6 children, and those families come together to compensate the teacher. Or with the walkout of the labor and delivery nurses in New York, what is the possibility through this? Maybe more home births that are generally known to be more safe because of all the germs, and like even the energetic vibration of a hospital is very dense, very ooh. And if you bring a child into that has impact. So now we have experienced nurses that could come to your home, not just doulas and midwives, which also are very incredible and very knowledgeable, of course. But now we can have the nurses too that have been doing that for their life, and they can come into the community, those kind of things. And I also think that we will see a decrease in using the word business, because business has always been related to competition, being better. How can I stand out? Do I make money, power, influence? That's why people call us influencer. That is all connected to the term of business. And I think that will fall away. It will be a servant exchange.
Right. Okay.
It will be less about how can I be better and how can I make more. It will be how can I serve you. That is the vision that I see for the future. And I see this more and more, where people either trade or barter, or when there is money involved, it is an energetic exchange. It is clear. Like even when I send out my invoices now, I say this is an energetic exchange. And this is what you get for this energetic exchange from my side of the deal. And we also will see that more and more. And I know we've talked about that before, where globally communities will come together, creating a financial system that we can shift whenever we have to. Let's say currency is changing and we go into some sort of crypto, whatever that would look like. I'm not there yet headwise. Some people are, I'm not. Yeah. But we can shift those financial systems in allowing community to support each other, where we can literally create platforms. And I've heard today that there have been books already available around creating platforms similar to that, or the vision of those platforms from many years ago.
Right.
Creating
Right.
platforms where people come together, supporting each other financially. Now, some people might call that Ponzi scheme and pyramid, but that again is part of the 3D mindset, this old mindset of, oh, this is not how this should work, or this is what it does. No, no, no. We're coming together in a very honest and very compassionate, very sincere way, saying we want to support everyone, that everyone has a chance to thrive.
Right.
And that will be bringing together those smaller compounds into the greater system. And it's going to be more self-driven, it's going to be more self-regulated, and people will move according to where they're at on their journey. So maybe after 10 years you lived in this community and you need something different, you need something more to evolve again, and you have connected with other people, and that can happen through technology, right? I mean, technology is incredible. And you switch, you move to a different compound, and some other families are like, well, I want to go over there, so I'll go there. It's going to be more in the flow. It's going to be more of a with each other, of a remembrance of who we are together, and the demonstration that we can create a fair system based on equality and according to our own skills.
Well, the Dalai Lama had said the Western woman would change the world. And what you're talking about is community, which is more of a woman's model, where it's teamwork. Basically, there's not a lot of ego. There's not a lot of hierarchy. That I think there were lots of communities built earlier, 40 years ago. There's lots of them that are still in that old hierarchical model, where the old people run it, but the young people do all the work, the physical labor on the community. Or there's there's an inspiration that still needs to be tweaked. I know that I see this as team.
Yeah.
That's the way and I'm not personally. I think business is the catalyst to change it all. That's why I'm involved in this. Is I see that business, a servant leader, affects all his employees and all his customers, him or her,
Yeah.
and they can turn and make the contributions to turn the ship very quickly because of their reach.
Yeah.
So it's like when you talk about influencers, well, think of an influencer that has that same vision you have. They can influence lots of people to see it all. It doesn't have to be all on competition. It can be on collaboration.
I think that will be the big word, collaboration. John, I would just want to read that personal business interaction has been replaced by the mega corp life of the 21st century, where Walmart replaces 90% of small business in the community. Yes, I agree with that. And how I see what is happening, I really think it's always going to feel like two different worlds. People who are aligned with this vision that I just mentioned, we will not need the corporate world anymore to survive. We will be able to support and sustain each other worldwide through the system that is being created. And those who are just not there and just can't get there, they will continue. They will continue living within this matrix that is very controlled. Maybe that gives them a sense of safety, to be controlled, to be told what to do, because they are just afraid to think themselves. Because if you start thinking yourself, a lot of things might crash, and that you thought to be true before. But some people are just not ready to experience that incredible breaking off. This breaking off understanding of how we're doing community. So I think you will see almost like two different worlds that are not really existing within each other's consciousness. So people who have the vision like us, we won't probably pay much attention to what's going on the other side. And what that will bring with it is that a lot of people may fall off that we were close with. It can also include family that no longer share that same vision.
Right.
And why this might be tragic, but people who have this really incredible awareness understand, again, how we're all connected, that we never are separated, even within this physical world, if there is a separation physically happening because of the different ideologies, ideology is the wrong word, but within a different way of living, they do have an ideology that, people live up to,
Well,
an identity.
I actually agree totally with that, where I see it that the people that are looking to co-create a community or art or science or anything are going to be working in this team, but they're going to be the bridge from the 3D to higher dimensional living consciousness, uh, living or consciousness. And the higher dimensional consciousness is where manifestation can happen very quickly.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the construct of heaviness, so it can reunify molecules really quickly.
Yeah. You can shift it. You can alchemy. That's what we're talking about when we talk about alchemy. You can transform physical matter very quickly.
Right.
I'm getting there. I'm not there yet. I'm still practicing, but I think I used to be able to do that in one of my lifetimes. I know that because I had to do some really huge healing around that one. But yeah, I really think that in that state of awareness, we will be able to create a whole different narrative. Atlantis, they're talking about that as well, that Atlantis was a world where people existed that way.
Right. Well, the concept of everything being frequency, and that your perception creates your body, creates everything in your physical world. If we dream a different dream and a better dream, then there's a opportunity to dream it together. That's what I'm excited about, is the co-creation. That's why I'm in Co-Creators Convergence. That's why I loved World Unity Week. And we're not there yet. There's all these futurists that talk about, it's not even utopia really, it's still creating from source, but through joy, not through fear.
Yeah.
See, this other level is fear, totally fear driven. It may be called different things, economics or insurance or whatever it is, but it isn't love. It isn't joy. It isn't co-creating at the highest, what I think we were intended to do.
I agree. And like I said, so many people don't even know what joy means. We're almost running out of time, but something I want to mention, I had a call earlier, and one guy, we were talking about co-creating a new community setting, a new system that supports everyone if they so wish. And he said something, and I'll read it. His mom always said, "Bring me men that match my mountains." And that is what we're doing. Bring me men that match my mountains. And that's what we're doing right now. And this is what's happening. And that's why COVID is actually quite profound, or the situation that it has created is quite profound in finding the men that will match our mountains and what we want to create.
Beautiful. The other thing I wanted that you had mentioned about people identifying their triggers, and then are you finding that people now are more welcoming to process them, or are still in story about their
If you look at the overall narrative, people are operating in the narrative, like they're in the story for sure. It is the people who are breaking out of it that are open to understanding, oh, this is my trigger, this is something I have to work through. People who are in constant fear, if you don't do this, then I this will happen to me, or this will happen to my children, whatever that is, that they are still completely living in their trigger, like literally, like they are just living it. and probably don't even see it. It really takes people who can sit down and like, oh my gosh, I wasn't realizing that, and I didn't notice. What can I do about it? It's the people who break away who are more open to it.
Well, part of this was what you resist persists. That
Mhm.
was part of what I was getting. And the other thing is that we're creating it all. So why not create something you like?
Yeah. Even now the protests for the children wearing masks,
Yeah,
um, I believe if we can all come together instead of fighting the school system, instead of saying we're taking all our kids out and we're creating, corporate, like not collaborative teaching opportunities where people still can go to work and have someone who can take care of their children as well as teach their children. The conversations would switch really quickly because they need the children. They only get financing if they have a certain amount of children in their schools.
right,
So if we were to just shift the narrative and say, well, if that is what you do, then I will create a different life, and I will collaborate with the people who think alike, and we will make it happen. And now is the opportunity. Now you can hire a teacher who have just left their jobs,
right,
and create a
right.
much different lifestyle and still be able to accommodate what you need.
Right. Well, it's a simpler way. I mean,
Mhm.
it's when you talked about the indigenous, and when you're talking about this, it's like the old schoolhouse. I mean, you're talking about a simpler way that we went into this highly mechanized, industrialized um, um education system and everything around it, so that we could create factory workers. Well, this is not the era of factory workers. We're going to have technology that can fulfill most of our needs if we so desire. And I can't wait for that. See, I kept thinking that, okay, if UFO disclosure comes through, then we'll have this whole new energy, which will topple all of the old guard because it's all based on oil and gas, and all of that will go away.
Yeah, then they can teach us how to fly something without oil and gas. Oh, teach us your ways. How do you do this? Because it definitely would be interesting to see how this would work out. I mean, a lot of things will be revealed, I think, over the next couple months and years. And I think we're technologically way further ahead that they have not released yet.
Exactly, med beds and
Oh yes, I mean we're already seeing it with all the different healing modalities, energy frequencies, sound, music, color therapy. Like those are all incredibly powerful healing modalities that we're already using, but we have so much more in store that is being hidden from us because it would mean that, again, big corporations won't make money.
right. Well, you mentioned Atlantis, and then even
Mm.
in Atlantis's time, and actually Atlantis in Egypt, Mesopotamia, they all were using frequency and sound healing. That
Yeah,
they,
there's so many cultures that are using it,
so it's almost like
especially smaller cultures. Yeah.
we went to sleep, and now we're waking back up. Yay.
And I'm sure they're all sitting there. I'm like, we already knew that the entire time. We just watched you go down for a couple centuries.
Well, I think part of that was colonization, where
Yeah.
European countries went all throughout all the other countries in the world. The sun never set on the English Empire,
Yeah.
um, on the flag. So they imposed their culture on these other people, and now all of a sudden that's it's being they were mystery school teachers that kept the mystery going. And now it's time for them to come out and share, please.
It's going to be interesting and it's going to be exciting. That's why I'm not worried. I will be okay. My family will be okay.
Yeah.
Friends that I have made over the last year and a half, I know some of them, I can count on them. They have my back. There's so much integrity and love, even if I haven't met them in person, but just the level of integrity
Mhm.
and compassion and understanding and acceptance, and the ability to communicate freely and openly without, taking everything personally.
Right.
Just being, or not making just assumptions, but being curious. That is where the true community and true love comes in.
That's perfect. And again, what we're talking about is the upliftment of humanity. And Isabel made this incredible video called "The Power of Connection." And Isabel, what's the best way? I'm sorry we have to wrap up, but we'll do this again. Because there's so many different things we didn't get to talk about. Um, but is it the power of connection.net? Is that the best way for people to
Yes,
connect?
currently it is. I am procrastinating with my website. I wanted I'm in the process of updating my personal website, isabelhunt.com. Anyone who goes to the website is being directed to the film website, and you can connect through the film website with me as well.
Well, we want to encourage you, if you have not seen this film, as soon as it's available for pay-per-view, or if there's a way to buy a copy of it, you want to see it, and you probably want to see it more than once, because well, I do.
Kathy was very disappointed when she joined an event and thought we would watch it again, and it turned out we weren't. We were just talking about it. It was so cute.
Well, because the thing is that the first time you just get your first impressions, but then you can keep going deeper, just like you went deeper when you did the film.
Yeah.
So this is a transformational tool.
Yeah, the film itself transformed me personally because I watched it a couple hundred times.
Well, I don't think I'll do that, but but I certainly would like. I'll probably watch it 5 times. I don't know. The thing is that the power of connection helps you realize what things are blocking you from enjoying this whole experience, your human experience, and it gives you an opportunity to question it and maybe change it. So that's thumbs up.
That's the goal.
Yes, thank you so much. I love you, and I love what you're doing. And
Thank you.
thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Gotta go. Sorry. Talk again soon.
Sounds good.